Hey everybody, this is Dream, and today we have a nice little 9-game Major League Baseball slate for you. As the season wraps down, there's definitely going to be some hiccups here, but we do have an interesting slate today. We do have a game in Colorado as well. Our stackable teams today: Arizona, Colorado, Chicago Cubs, LA Angels, Kansas City, New York Mets, and Philly. This slate is kind of rough because pitching looks decent, but it also has a lot of teams that don't look great. Then we also have some bats that look really good on some teams, but my gosh, we have a game in Colorado, so that definitely mucks up the slate some. I don't think Arizona and Colorado are teams that you have to play guys from, and obviously they're going to be overpriced due to the game there, but we do have some guys that we do like Gabriel Moreno and Corbin Carroll, who have fantastic metrics for today. So let's go ahead and get into it, though. Let's look at our pitchers. So from the pitching perspective, our top pitchers are going to be Seth Lugo here for Kansas City against Detroit. He's been pretty good lately. He has a good strikeout rate, and he's got nice potential today. He has some good upsides in a positive matchup. I do think a couple bats from Detroit are okay, though, especially later in the game. Sean Manaea looks really solid from the Mets. He's been on fire lately with a lot of really good games in a row, and as long as he's pitching that well and getting enough strikeouts, he's definitely a capable option today. And he has a favorable matchup against Washington, who looks absolutely abysmal on the slate. I think he's got one of the better strikeout rates on this one as well. Another guy to consider would be Amanga against the Oakland A's. Now he has given up some home runs this season, and Oakland can definitely hit a couple, but I still think he'll do decent enough to be a viable choice here today. And then Reed Detmers for the Angels. He's got an absolutely fantastic matchup against the White Sox, and he's been really good the last two games. So he has been up and down throughout the year. He does have good stuff at times, and this game being at home probably helps him a little bit as well. So his strikeout stuff is good enough to be a decent option here on the slate. I also note of Skeens, who is supposedly going to be on a limit at some point, but he really hadn't had the limit yet, as he's been at 98 pitches the last couple of games. So I'm not sure if he's going to get pushed down some, but that will actually lower his ownership a little bit. So he's definitely going to be somebody you have to consider, but he's not a must play by any stretch of imagination. Some extreme GPP plays that we have: Yamamoto for the Dodgers gets Atlanta. Max Fried against the Dodgers, Arrighetti for Houston against San Diego, and Darvish from San Diego against Houston. Most of the other players are either boom or bust plays or avoidables. The boom or bust are Suarez, Palante, Olson, Kelly, Civavel, and Estes, and then the avoiders are going to be Irvin, Sentenzilla, and then Cannon. So do keep that in mind, guys. Pitching is going to be kind of rough today to get the right ones, but there's definitely ways to go about it. Look at our catchers today. We have some very interesting catching potentials on the slate. William Contreras from Milwaukee does jump off the page as a great option. He's been phenomenal throughout the year, so but he does have a couple ups and downs. Though his hitting potential today is off the charts, so he's definitely a great option on the slate. I also like Gabriel Moreno, though, and he is a core play for me. If you're going to stack up any Arizona, or you think Arizona is going to do well in this game, which they're definitely capable of doing, then you definitely want to probably put him in the lineup, as his hitting metrics today are just off the charts. I really like his potential today. And then, but we do have also Hunter Goodman, who can also play in the outfield for Colorado. I think Colorado does look really solid today. They've had some ups and downs, but he's been pretty good at getting some hits the last few games. Even though he struggled most of the season, I think he's a good option on the slate, and so he's definitely worth a look. Logan Hope for the Angels also looks decent. LA Angels also look very interesting today. He's been a little bit inconsistent recently, but he's got capable hitting metrics today as well. The ownership at this position: Gabriel Moreno, Logan Hope, and Hunter Goodman. Looking at first base, we do like Christian Walker, though he is very expensive and hard to roster as a result, especially if you're going to try to fit in Corbin Carroll, but he's been phenomenal against the Colorado Rockies this season, and this is a good matchup for him. Luis Arias is another guy that I really like a lot today. Now, I think he can fit in here at first or at second base, and he is very close to core place, so I might actually just move him in there. He's been hitting really well lately. He obviously has great hitting metrics. He's not a huge home run threat, though, so keep that in mind. But he does fit in at first or second base here. The ownership here, though, will go to Nico Cavadas for the Angels, who's very interesting. Luis Arias and Pavin Smith. Looking at second base, we do like Ketel Marte for Arizona. He has some really good metrics today, and he has been decent at times this season. He has home run potential every time out. He is overpriced, though, so keep that in mind. Luis Arias also fits in here at second base. And then Jose Altuve, he's a good alternative to Marte if you want, who's been a little bit better lately than Marte has, but he's a lot cheaper, which helps. Looking at the ownership here, Ketel Marte, Brendan Rodgers, Luis Arias, and Xander Bogaerts. Looking at third base, we do like Eugenio Suarez for Arizona. Obviously, Arizona looks solid today. He's been pretty good against Colorado this season as well. This matchup is pretty decent. Now, he has had some strikeout issues at times this season, so keep that in mind. But he's definitely capable of a solid game here, though his price does not make him easy to roster. Ryan McMahon has been one of the better options on Arizona this season, or sorry, Colorado this season when we've utilized him. He has some upside today with some home run potential, but he's high risk, high reward. Manny Machado also looks interesting for San Diego with some home run potential on the slate. The ownership at this position, though, Isaac Paredes, Jared Torrillo, and Eugenio Suarez, but there are two Hail Mary plays and Eric Wagaman for the Angels and Brian Ramos for the White Sox that you could utilize on this one. Looking at shortstop, Bobby Witt Jr. does jump off the page. He's obviously been phenomenal this season. He has kind of struggled the last few games with not getting too many hits, but he's been getting the hits, but he hadn't had any big hits, I should say, last few games. So do keep that in mind. He did have one home run though, so he is capable of a big game. It's just a matter of him hitting the right situation to get the good hits on, and he's definitely capable of that, though he is extremely expensive today. Geraldo Paramo is one of the better, cheaper options for Arizona, but he is overpriced for his potential as he's not really a home run hitter, but he does have good hitting metrics today, so he's definitely interesting at least. And then Zach Neto, he's probably my favorite play of the cheaper options at this position simply because he's been hitting the ball decently well, though he has had some strikeouts last few games. He is very capable of a solid game today. Looking at the ownership, though, Dansby Swanson, Isaac Kiner Falafel, Ezekiel Tovara, and Zach Neto. I also think that maybe paying for somebody different like Swanson or Connor Falafel is a good way to go today, just because nobody at this position looks like they just jump off the page or anything, and maybe going a little chalkier might be the better strategy. Looking at outfielders, we do like Corbin Carroll, Jock Peterson, Jake McCarthy, and Otani being our top overall plays. But I do think Charlie Blackmon also has some potential, though he is a little bit overpriced on this slate, as there are some of the guys from Colorado today. I do think he's a viable option, though, but he's high risk, high reward. Some value options here. Luis Robert Jr. for the White Sox. He's kind of a one-off against Detmers. Kerry Carpenter is a one-off for Detroit against Lugo. And then Nolan Jones looks solid against Colorado here, or for Colorado, I should say. A couple other guys, Ian Happ, Jackson Chorio, for Milwaukee against Suarez, and then Mickey Maniac. If he ends up in the starting lineup against Canada, he'll be somebody to consider. Jake Cave also has some low-owned upside potential. The top ownership at this position, Corbin Carroll, Fernando Tatis, Ian Happ, Jake McCarthy, Pavin Smith, Taylor Ward, Jock Peterson, Hunter Goodman, Sia Suzuki, and Garrett Mitchell. I do think that Carol Moreno and Luis Arias are probably the top overall core plays for this slate, and that's who I'll be having as a core on my